public through the comprehensive plan, a document that has a map of where the haul road is going to go. What else are they doing that's incorrect? So that made me think about the transportation side of this completely, and I'll focus only on that, my attention on that. I wrote about a 10-page argument, which I sent to all of the staff, many of you, and said, with my comments, asked a series of questions as a citizen, and hopefully the answers to those questions are being proposed and provided to you. What's happening now is you're to the point where you're going to have to make some decisions, and based on what we've heard today, there's lots of questions that you're going to have to ask and have answered, hopefully before we make a final decision. We received back on May 9th, we received a letter from Servatus that went out to all of us as citizens. And in that letter, they told us about what they were doing. They were moving ahead with their application. I wrote back to the city, or to the county, and my letter I wrote, actually I think should have been written by you. So, and I'm going to read you my letter, because I think letters like this are going to have to come from you, and the actions I requested are the actions you're going to have to ask before you make a final decision. So here's my letter. Note in the May 9th letter, Servatus states, the drilling operation will span approximately 6 days for each well, which you've heard, operating 24 hours per day. Fracking operation will occur in approximately 45-day period. Long-term production may continue for 20 to 30 years, also what you've heard. The letter did not cover the quantity of water required to support the operation. Specifically, people have mentioned water, but there's no note that says exactly how much water, nor the wastewater removal, nor the build and support of the road on the public property within the ranch. That's the haul road. There's an existing dirt road there. That road supposedly is going to be rebuilt up to some set of standards so these trucks can run back and forth, nor the damage to the public roads over which the construction, the water, and the waste trucks will travel. The letter does not cover the agreement to finance the potential damage caused by spillage from the trucks, nor the shutdown of the well after the 30 years of operation, which you've also heard mentioned, especially after Servatus has sold the rights to a second party, which you've also heard. I raised these issues in response to Servatus's open house. I have not received a single response from my party, so hopefully you will get answers to these questions yourself that you will ask. So my actions were please send me a copy, meaning you should, a copy of recent transportation study conducted by the county that covers the requested Servatus application. This study must have all the truck traffic, data, truck weights, etc., and should have been completed within the last 4 months as the Servatus operating details became available. 4 months, not 2 years ago, not 3 years ago. Please explain to me the quantity of production water required and the source. The quantity determines the weight and the quantity of trucks necessary to dispose, and they're moving into the fracking area and out of the fracking area. How much weight, how much water is the truck going to carry? What's the truck going to weigh? Please send me a copy of the financial calculations that the county has used to determine the level of bonding or other financial transactions that will be applied to the application for approval for the potential damage and closeout of all participating areas. Primarily, I'm talking about the transportation area. So please determine those types of questions and be tough on the people giving you the answers before you make your decision.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Robert Kahn. I am a citizen of Aurora. My house backs up to the reservoir. I'm an 82-and-a-half-year-old grandfather, and I moved here about 15 years ago to be near my daughter and my grandson. And about 13 years ago, I started developing respiratory problems. And now I'm learning why. So I'm concerned because I use the reservoir a lot. I have to walk, my doctor said, and I walk the reservoir when I can. I like to go to the beach and I swim. Sometimes I rent a paddle boat. And I love doing photography of the birds and the wildlife at the reservoir. I know that fracking releases gas and pollutants into the air. So that's part of why I'm getting these symptoms. And I think it's endangering other people as well. I am opposed to fracking at the Aurora Reservoir and anywhere near it. I'm concerned that fracking breaks up the ground, the rock underneath, and it will severely damage or structure of houses and schools that are in the area. The Aurora Reservoir is our main water supply. And in a state that has very little water and often finds itself in drought situations, as a taxpayer in Aurora, I am only allowed to water my lawn twice a week for only 10 minutes a time. However, this project will enable them to use almost 4 billion gallons of water. And in a state that really has no water, that's an unconscionable waste of good water. That water that's used in fracking is laced with toxic chemicals to do its work. If, God forbid, there is a leak anywhere, that leak brings that toxic chemical into the groundwater and will find its way into the Aurora Reservoir. It will kill fish and wildlife. It will contaminate the water. And as far as recreational ability at the Aurora Reservoir, it'll be impossible. So I implore you, in the interest of safety and good health and a healthy environment, please, I beg of you, deny this application for the benefit of everyone. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Kahn. Are you Ms. Jacobs?
I am. My name's Molly Jacobs. I am a citizen of Arapahoe County. I'm here for my mom and my aunt. They both have lung issues. My aunt is on an oxygen tank 24/7. She actually lives in Denver, which is not that far from here. And Denver went from having the 7th worst air quality in America to the 6th worst air quality. So we have an air quality problem here. And it's frustrating that I have to politely and respectfully ask for you to protect my community from a billion-dollar company. We're not really seeing the benefits of their work here. They only create 3% of the jobs. They're taking all this oil out of our land, and they're selling our oil to foreign countries. And, you know, we might need that oil somewhere down the line. I also think that it's an outdated energy source. We don't put lead paint on children's toys anymore because we know it's dangerous and harmful. And the fact that we still allow the drilling to continue in our beautiful state is disappointing. We have less than 6 years before climate change is irreversible. We've already seen the effects of climate change and natural disasters increasing, not only in Colorado, but all over the world. Brazil is flooded right now. And we don't have much time left. I spent a lot of time this last legislative season down at the Capitol trying to help pass bills that would protect my community. I understand that this billion-dollar company wants to run their billion-dollar business, but I have a feeling that none of the people that run that company actually live in this community. And I don't think they would drill in their backyard or near their home or near their children. So I'm asking you as our protectors to please reject this proposal, stop all of the drilling. As my dad would say, If I had my druthers, I'd druther that you didn't drill at all. But, you know, unfortunately, that's not the world we live in, so please just do your best to protect us. We're not billion-dollar people here. Most of us probably aren't millionaires either, so it's up to you to protect us from them. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jacobs. All right, next up, we have Faith Arguwal, Joanne Hackus, Art Salcida, David Anderson, and Michael Dorsky. Any of those individuals are invited to come on up and speak to us. Go ahead, sir.
My name's David Anderson. I didn't plan to talk, so I didn't have a prepared speech. Moved back to Colorado, where my first son was born, to be with our 2 grandchildren. We chose South Shore because of the reservoir and the beauty of that area. And I was just disappointed to hear about this stewardship of leasing our land to some oil company to frack the hell out of it, where we all know fracking is not healthy. You've heard all of the health issues, air and water. The big companies always say, it's not going to matter, it's not going to hurt you. Microplastics, fertilizer, pesticides, ozone, you name it. It's in our water now when they said it wouldn't get there. So why take your stewardship, give it to this company that's going to take their money and run when they've got it, and we're going to be left with some kind of wild wilderness that looks like Elizabeth, New Jersey. If you want to live with this crap around you, go to Elizabeth and you'll have it. I don't want Elizabeth, New Jersey in my backyard.
Thank you. Come on up.
Good evening. I'm Joanne Hackus. I'm the chair of the Colorado Sierra Club Oil and Gas Committee. When I was growing up, the first time I ever heard about Lowry was when my father told me that he had trained at the Lowry Air Station to learn how to bomb Germany. The next time I heard about Lowry were emails and phone calls from the people who are here tonight. 2 years ago, when people called us panicked because they didn't know what to do. They had been approached by agents who were asking them to sell mineral rights under their homes, and they didn't know what that meant. They heard from local schools who were being asked to sell the mineral rights under the schools in order to raise money. You've heard today from lots of people who've talked about the personal concerns that they have about the reservoir, about the water supply, about the homes, about the air, about the animals, the threatened species in the area. You've heard all of those arguments we've been hearing for the last 2 years. So who benefits from this? The company, Arapahoe County, the city of Aurora, the people selling water, the people who are going to make millions, or if not billions of dollars, out of this cap. That benefit does not come to our state in many ways. As you know, most of that oil and natural gas is now being sold out of the country. We're concerned with the people here, the impact on them. We really, really hope that in this case, unlike all the others we've heard about in the last 5 years, that you will consider the appeal that the people are making to you to not let this happen. I hope you're listening. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
My name's Mrs. Agarwal, and I'm here for my kids. And thank you so much for this opportunity. And I'm wholeheartedly hoping that you are listening with the intent to have actionable measures from this comment session. I remember the first meeting I ever attended on this proposal was with my 4-month-old daughter. Now she's a year and a half. And it was a town hall with Francois Bergen and Mr. Moore in February of 2023 titled Mineral Rights, Leasing, and General Updates. The first and only informational about this fracking plan that was local to us. The people representing us promoted oil and gas and did not educate. The takeaway message was that goose poop is more dangerous and the fracking will happen anyway and you'll be force pooled, so you might as well take the deal. The room was full and disappointed. At the Arapahoe County Commissioners meetings, they allowed us to do a full public comment and then at the end pulled out a sheet of paper and read that their prepared comment to decline our input. I live and breathe here with my children. They're on the school playgrounds. I have almost full visibility of the access road that Civitas shows is at ground level that nobody can see. And I told them during their meeting, hey, I can see that truck thing that's sitting on the access road. And they're like, oh, are you on the hill? And I'm like, yeah, along with all the other houses. And that was it. And I'm like, okay. I ask that you decline the cap based on SB 19-181 as it is reasonable and necessary from the numerous factual data that's been presented to you today about the severe non-attainment of ozone, water misuse, drought, air pollution, effect on health and safety of residents, the reservoir, the recreation, and the revenue that comes from the reservoir, the seismic repercussions, Superfund site, habitat, biodiversity, and everything in that list holds so much weight. I've been coming with my daughter for her entire life, and we all feel so lost. We've talked to everybody, and you're the people that make the decision. And I went on a Zoom and listened to you talk, and the operator said nobody opposed, and I'm like, screaming inside, like, we oppose these, wells. So I'm so glad that you're here to listen to us, and I've heard, you had great, comebacks at them, like, no, you can't do that. You can't just list whatever you want and do it. So please listen to us, because I'm so glad, it's like talking to celebrity. I'm like, I get to talk to you, so thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Art Saucetta, and my wife and I live in the South Shore area. And I do really want to thank you guys for spending the time and listening to us, and really, really listening to us, because there's obviously a lot of opinion out here, and it makes it a long evening, but I truly appreciate that. But just like everybody else, I certainly urge ECMC to reject the Lowry Ratch Cap proposal. My focus is kind of on the water side of things in the Aurora Reservoir. It's a heavily visited place. You've heard a lot of this already, but it provides water to us. It's a key reason why my wife and I moved to this area less than 2 years ago. And as soon as we found out about the fracking, it was really, really a frustrating time for us to hear about that after moving to such a beautiful location in South Shore. And you've heard a lot of this as well, but the priceless value of clean water. I mean, that is just so valuable, especially in this state. And to lose that, or to take a chance of losing that, which would likely happen at some point in time, is really problematic for us as well. I know you've heard about the 4 billion gallons of water. In fact, I have a lot of notes here, but you guys have heard most of them, so I'm going to kind of skip past some of them. But this fracking in many locations have been problematic, and the water that's used for that's just a ton of water that we really don't have. And Another point is the location of the Superfund site in relation to the 4 large aquifers that supply much of the Metro Denver. So even Metro Denver could easily have a water issue there as well. Civitas claims that they go above and beyond requirements for environmental protection, and they're committed to sampling wells within 1/2 mile of the cap well pads. However, they've identified 5 drinking water wells and 2 streams within 1/2 mile of the Wetterhorn Handles well pad, yet they're not planning to sample any of those waters. So just back to the comprehensive plan, not being comprehensive, not really taking all the due diligence that's needed there. That is very obvious to me. We've seen problems. I know that New Jersey was mentioned, but problems in Pennsylvania, West Virginia, because of all the PFAS that gets released into the air when fracking is happening. And so really, and I will close out quickly here, that in my mind, it really would be negligent for ECMC to fail to consider the impact in the short term and the long term of all the residents already living in the area, including ourselves. In my opinion, the risks are much higher than any of the eventual rewards that would get out of this project, and that this proposal should definitely be rejected. Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. I'm going to raise a slightly different issue. I could, again, would support, first let me introduce myself. I'm Michael Wurzman. I'm a Purdue engineer, have my MBA from Indiana University. I work in the field professionally in sustainability, specifically the automotive industry, and in fact this morning was giving a webinar on our efforts to reduce energy and carbon throughout the supply chain, the manufacturing side for the automotive industry. And that's totally relevant to what we're looking at here today. Because as we look at what's going on, we have to look at the bigger picture. What we have learned in manufacturing is that we have to take a look at life cycle assessment, which means taking a look at all of the impacts, both positive and negative, that come from a project such as this. As we heard at the start of this, we're probably, for every dollar that we get as a community, long term, we're probably going to lose $10 in terms of the total cost, environmental damage, remediation at the end, and the rest. And from what I know, looking at these type of assessments, that number sounds a little conservative to me. But be that as it may, but what we have to look at here is what are we really is important. We're looking at the need for energy at the state, at the need for revenue for both our county, our state, and our local, and the need to protect the health of our community and our long-term resources. Therefore, one thing that's been missing in all of these plans is a comprehensive life cycle assessment analysis of the alternative use of this land. We know we are about 9 years away from practical, large-scale geothermal development, which would have a significantly less impact environmentally and otherwise. We know we have a lot of sunshine out here as far as what are the solar, and as you heard, we have a lot of prevalent winds, which are both eastern and western, which is what raises the fire risk, for wind energy, and taking a look at what we need to do in terms of our energy management solution for the state. We know in automotive, we have global efforts underway to eliminate the need for carbon. Yes, batteries are the short term, hydrogen is the longer term solution that's being looked at. We need to be forward looking, and actually, before we approve a short-sighted project which has tremendous downsides and risks, what can we do long-term strategic that will provide more revenue for the state, more revenue for the county, more long-term energy for the country, and protect the health? This is something that really needs to be evaluated as part of this as we are looking for the future of the state. And as I said, managing our engine and carbon emissions. Thank you for the opportunity to raise this issue.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to call the next panel up. Michael Dorsky, Katie Collins, Bill Crosser, Sue Ebertsberg, Chris Sutton, and Louis Avalos.
My name is Michael Dorsky. My wife and I are residents of Talions Reach. I want to thank you today for giving us the opportunity to speak. Being a former volunteer on a Sewer and Water Authority Commission, I know the amount of work that goes involved on this, so I thank you for your time here today. Like pretty much everybody else who spoke today, which I think is interesting, that everybody here seems to be in agreement, I am against the Lowry Ranch cap proposal for pretty much all the reasons that have already been stated. Rather than going over the same matters that you've already heard, there's a couple of things maybe to be thinking about if you are going to eventually approve, which I hope you don't, the proposal, but there are certain items that maybe to mitigate some of this. One of my concerns is that the chemicals that are pumped into the ground, there's a number of proprietary chemicals that are used. Those are not, stated to the public. I understand why that might be, but I think it's very, very important that we know what those are, if not the public, at least some people do, that we research that, find out what the baseline is right now for it, and then study those to make sure those are not increasing. I'm also concerned with flaring, which is commonly used for the excess methane that's produced. Flaring helps a little bit of the methane, but a lot of that, other organic chemicals, are still going to the air. There are other methods other than flaring, which I think should be used. I fully understand that it's more expensive and the costs are higher, but I don't think that should be the only factor. I also think that particularly in the event that we do have, unfortunately, any spills, we hope we do not, or any other disasters or more studies that may determine at some point down the road that cancer rates are increasing, that we need to be able to get a sufficient bond to cover the increased costs to both real estate values and medical costs for our local hospitals. In addition, I would like to also see, as part of that performance bond, monies be set aside for potentially every household in this community to be given a water filtration system if that's what's determined. This would require a very large bond. I don't know what the amount would be. I heard a $1 trillion figure from one gentleman. I'm trying to be a little more reasonable, but I think maybe at least $100 billion might be enough to cover that. Anyway, those would be my comments. I thank you very much and for listening to us.
Thank you, Mr. Dorsky.
Is my microphone on? Oh, thank you. My name is Bill Cresser. My wife and I followed our grandchildren here about 4 years ago to Aurora. I have a PhD in chemical engineering, and since the late 60s, I've been working on identifying pollution sources and fixing the problem so that the pollution didn't continue to occur. By 1974, I became associate professor of environmental studies at the West Virginia College of Graduate Studies in Charleston, West Virginia, where we have 7 chemical plants about like Suncor. And so my job was to have the 35-year-old workers come in and train them on how to better produce their product with less pollution. Now, things were moving fast in those days. In 1980, we were using methods that hadn't even been heard of in 1975. In 1985, we were using methods that hadn't been heard of in 1980. So it was a matter of constantly doing better and better. And people that work in pollution control know that since the population's increasing, the standard of living is increasing, then the emissions from our tailpipe have to go down a proportionate amount in order to make, just keep us in the same place. So by 1985, we were in pretty good shape. We had achieved attainment for ozone. And so I got into risk assessment, and that's what you people were doing now. And I was asked to evaluate some government projects to evaluate the risks and the benefits. And I sympathize with all the information that you have to take in order to be able to do that. I also was hired by a couple of companies to help them with their pollution control. And in one case, we took a project that had an awful smell in the neighborhood. And we didn't cut it in half. We didn't cut it to a 1/10 or a 100th. We eliminated the problem. In another case, there was a coal preparation plant that we got the same sort of results. And I was told by at least 2 clients that they had fired their other national consultants. And I was the only person they knew of that could solve these problems. So now we have to look at what to do with Lowry Ranch. And I have to tell you, I can keep up with a lot of those problems, but this is just beyond anything that can be done. Fracking is just not compatible with human life. It's not compatible with life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The current problems with the way fracking is practiced just is going to take a place like Colorado and make it look like West Virginia. You're about 100 years behind West Virginia. 100 years ago, they were discovering resources under the ground and learning how to dig down and get them. And now there are entire towns that are just boarded up, unoccupied, nothing around except methamphetamine and poverty. And that I just hate to see that happen here.
Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Sue Ebersberger, and I did not come tonight expecting to speak, but I need to share a story with you. My sister and I bought a house here and moved in with my daughter in December. And you can imagine our surprise. She and I are both retired. We bought this house to be our retirement home that we would be in forever. And then we found out Friday, this past Friday, about the fracking. And frankly, it was a shock, and not only a shock, but I also have enough experience from living other places that I know realistically what it can mean. I lived in Pennsylvania, and I want to share just some images with you so you have some real images of things. I lived in Pennsylvania when they were starting that fracking projects, and on the news every night, there was more and more information about fracking. And one night they had somebody turn on their spigot in their house, their faucet in their kitchen. And someone lit a match, and the water coming out of the spigot was set on fire. This is what we're talking about. And that company said, oh, it's safe, it's okay, don't worry. But you have to worry. And I don't care what these people say in terms of it's okay, it'll be safe. It's not. Another place that I lived had a lot of earthquakes. Little tiny fractures in the ground. When you push water down in and move it out, takes little tiny fractures and turns those into earthquakes. And those earthquakes take your home and can totally turn it into rubble. I've seen it happen, especially in places where you don't have to build earthquake-proof houses, and that's what our houses are. It will not just cause us $30,000 or $40,000 in our property value, it will make me go bankrupt. And it will make a lot of the people who were here tonight go bankrupt. And that will affect the tax system, tax base in our county, in our area. This is not a little thing. This is our lives. They say in the report that the seismic changes are unknown. Well, guess what? You can know them. You can study them and find out what they are. Saying it's unknown is unacceptable. And y'all have the opportunity to say, no, we need clear information that is not just, oh, well, you know, we didn't have time, we didn't have the energy, we didn't have the money to study it, or we didn't want to know the answer. So I encourage you to ask for not just studies, but an independent study that is done by people who are not related to the company, who can tell us real information about what the effects are. Because that's what we need. We need some information that is careful and that is thoughtful and that is not biased by the people producing it. I came tonight because I need you. I need help from you. I said to a young woman at the table that signed us up, I said, I need your help. And she looked at me and I said, this can't keep going on. And she said, I'm just here to organize the place. So I realized I need her, but I need you to protect me, to protect these people. We all need you. We are all counting on you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Chris Sutton, and I live in Tollgate Crossing. As you know, this, if it happens, would be under and near the water supply for the city of Aurora and for the Aurora Reservoir. Now, according to the COGCC Daily Activity Dashboard dataset documents, there were 1,186 oil and gas industry spills that were reported to you in 2023. And in total, there have been 3,749 spills that have been reported since this data set began aggregating since 2020. That's a lot of spills. So statistically, it's really highly likely that there are gonna be some spills if this happens. And to think that this is not going to affect the water in the Aurora Reservoir is just wishful thinking. Furthermore, the grasslands to the east of our homes are a tinderbox that could go up just like the Marshall Fire. And there are thousands of homes, thousands of lives that can be impacted by these spills and by fires that could be caused by these 24/7 fracking operations. There's absolutely no reason that this fracking needs to happen so close to our homes, except for one reason, and that's greed. Look, I'm also a cancer survivor. I don't need to be near 160 wells that can cause a recurrence of it. And this is common sense. Nobody in their right minds wants to be near fracking, near or underneath their house. Whenever I tell people that this company wants to frack near or under my house, you know what their reaction is? Ugh. Ugh, why? Ugh, why are they gonna do that? That's terrible. As you can see, people don't want this. We don't want this. Look at all these people we got here in such short notice. We represent the thousands of people in this community. We don't want this fracking. You saw all the raised hands earlier. This has to count more than Civitas. There are thousands of lives at stake. If this goes forward, our community is going to go downhill. It will go downhill. But you have the power to save it. You have the power to save our quality of life or to flush it down the toilet. And so it's up to you. We are begging for your help. Fracking does not belong near a water source, and it doesn't belong near thousands of homes. Period. Please, please deny these wells. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Katie Collins. I live in Beacon Point with my husband, Mick. I attended the Colorado School of Mines and obtained an engineering degree from there. While I was attending the Colorado School of Mines, at first I studied geology, and I worked as a summer intern for the International Groundwater Modeling Center that was co-located on the Colorado School of Mines campus. And I learned about the principle of how water can travel underground along fault lines just like electricity can flow through a wire. So the equivalent of what blocks electricity flow is a resistor. Same thing happens underground with underground water travel. Rock can act like a resistor. Just like lightning bolts can send a sudden shock of electricity traveling, so can seismic fault lines underground. The very nature of fracking is seismic fracturing, literally crushing underground rock structures to extract the natural gas. Also creates additional new fault lines that can be a path of travel for pollutants. Pollutants from the Lowry Superfund site. Also at the Colorado School of Mines in the geology program, we learned what is a Superfund site. A Superfund site is the worst of the worst. It's the highest priority, most toxic, most dangerous spill of its kind that the government, the EPA, has ranked and put on a list and put billions of dollars towards cleaning that up. And so knowing that water can travel underground through these fault lines and fractures caused by fracking, also knowing we're adjacent to a Superfund site, I think that Senate Bill 181, Rule 314, compels you to complete a full seismic study and risk assessment to prevent and to predict, not if, but when, and what is the mathematical probability of pollution traveling from one of the toxic sites along fault lines into our drinking water. The Lowry cap should not be approved without further study, and that is, I think, the responsibility of your organization under the new bill. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're going to call up the next panel, Luis Avalos, Nancy Worsman, Aldo Plascencia, no idea how to pronounce that, beautiful name, Reno Reese, and Michelle Key.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Luis Avalos, United States Navy retired. I don't approve fracking, as the majority of you are here for. It is more harmful than good to nearby schools and community. And there's no need for it. We don't need it. Aurora doesn't need it. Aurora Aurora, Colorado is the third largest city in the state. Do any of the other two cities have fracking areas near large communities like this? I don't believe so. I have not seen any. I have not heard of any. I do know that there are neighborhoods near Greeley that have fracking sites, and they have earthquake issues over there. Fracking leads to both toxins in the air, benzene, toluene, ethylbenzene, and xylene, also known as BTEX. You can't just brush when accidents happen like these under the rug. You can't brush them under the rug because guess what? They're in the air. You breathe the air every few seconds. Can't just be holding your breath from time to time. Hopefully you don't breathe it in. During my time in the service, I have met people who've been victimized by contaminants. One example is the USS Ronald Reagan, who was near the Fukushima site when it was contaminated from the radiological disaster that happened there. I met one sailor who had a mastectomy a few years later as cancer started turning up. One time in, I believe it was 2014 going to 2015, before my ship, the USS Benfold, was heading to Japan, getting port shifted, I went by to one of our neighboring ships, I believe it was the USS Cowpens at the time, and I showed up and I realized that there was radiation stickers on some of the doors leading to the ventilations. And it's because they were with the USS Nimitz, the USS Ronald Reagan strike group. Accidents can happen anytime, and when they do, is approving this project really that worth it? Putting everyone at risk, children at risk? We have gone through two major economic issues since late 2000s. The housing crisis. Look at what happened to Southlands Mall. How many businesses left? Look how desolate it became as we were trying to pick back up. A decade later, COVID. How did Southlands Mall once again look desolate? Everyone knows that putting this high-risk project could become an economic disaster. Do you honestly think people want to continue to send their children to these prestigious schools you have right by the reservoir? Cherokee Trail, Fox Ridge. There's a country club just down the street from it. Do you honestly think people are going to want to be there if these contaminants go into the air? We need a place for our children to play, grow, and thrive, not a place to bury them before we do. End up in the ground. What happens if it contaminates the reservoir? Are you still going to drink the water there? Or are you going to grab a glass, stick it into the reservoir? I'll give you a chance to boil it, but those contaminants are still going to be there. The American Economic Association reports...
If you could start wrapping up, please.
Sir, I did 20 years in the military service. You can give me that moment at least.
I'm giving everybody 3 minutes. You're at 4.5.
When Flint, Michigan was contaminated, 34%, over 34% of their housing dropped. Nobody wanted to live there. Bringing fracking in at such a thriving city like Aurora, Colorado, is like actually having a bad DJ play at a good party. I feel that anyone's approval of this project means that they have selfish gains and benefits for themselves rather than selfless acts for its residents. Thank you.
Next.
Hi, I'm going to try to be brief. My name is Nancy Wurzman, and I live in South Shore. I don't want to go over a lot of what's already been said here tonight, because there are numerous reasons you should be rejecting this entire project as filed by Civitas. We moved here 7 years ago for grandchildren. It seems to be a common refrain. When we moved into South Shore, they told us, They can't build back there. The only thing that's back there is Kansas. They can't build. They're a bombing range. They're wildlife. They are protected. And even to this day, by the way, they're not telling people who are buying houses. They're just not telling them about the project, about what's happening. So other people have talked about some of the actual impacts. What I'd like to directly address is that Civitas did an environmental health and safety assessment almost a decade ago, or close to. And as somebody talked about tonight, they acknowledged that there were going to be harms and how much pollution was going to be in the air, all of that. However, there's been a change. Originally, we were told in South Shore a year ago that they were going to put a pad behind us, and there were going to be like 12 wells on it. We are now looking at State Sunlight, State Long, which they have now combined because they couldn't put them closer to the reservoir. We're going to have 32 wells. And not only that, the way I've looked at the map, somebody also had mentioned this earlier about the transportation route. I looked at the map. They're talking about putting the access road between the well pads and the community, which means if all we're going to get is 3,000 feet from the back of the community, we're talking about having the equivalent of an interstate highway going between our community and the well pad. Think about it. As I'm hearing today, I'm hearing beep, beep, beep. That's what's going to be going on 24/7 behind those homes. The truck traffic, the pollution, the noise. I mean, it's just horrifying to think of it. When Civitas is, this has to do with they only care about their bottom line. I spoke to somebody at Civitas when when they did one of their dog and pony shows, and they talked about they could push these wells, the surface wells, they could push them out further. Well, they're not because it's less expensive for them. They said they have the technology today to move them another mile out if they were going to be, if you're going to approve them at all, but they could move them another mile out because what they're talking about with the fracking lines, they can go 4 miles. They're only doing 3 miles now, but they can go 4, and it's going to become even more than that as technology goes on. Why are they not doing it? It all has to do with their profit. And one of my real concerns in this whole area is that they have rules that they have to follow. You're going to put rules on them. The county's going to put rules on them. What happens when they don't follow the rules? They'll get a slap on the wrist, and they'll stall, and it's not our fault, and other things could be the case too. If they put this in here, the only thing that they're going to say is, whoops, and they're not going to care. They are not going to care. The fines are not high enough to get their attention. I don't know how you put it there and allow them to do this with absolutely no consequence to them. So I appreciate what you're doing. I appreciate you taking the time to hear us out. And I urge you to do the right thing and don't let them do this to us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Saldo Placencia. Thank you all for being here. I know you guys have families at home waiting for you. I have children waiting for me at home. And my wife is here. At any rate, I wanted to really, really thank you guys and thank you for your service. I'm a public servant myself. And I have a lot of talking points, but I'm not going to go with those. I know we're short on time. Pretty much my bottom line is I ask you to please consider this as if it were your own community, as if it were your children that you're raising in our neighborhood. And, going to school, seeing the wells, and having other environmental impacts, health impacts. And although the fracking might be relatively short-lived, the environmental and health impacts may last for many, many decades to come. I am a public servant myself. I work with the federal government, and I regulate surface coal mines, and it's very similar to fracking. I've seen a lot of the negative impacts, so I please ask you to think of our community as your own, and ask yourself, do you want this in your own backyard? Do you want your children, yourself, your grandchildren to be breathing this air, drinking the water? And here I have Aurora tap water, and I'm very happy to be drinking it, and hopefully that would be the case for many, many years to come. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
I think I may be the last name called. Michelle Ray, retired educator, PhD in mathematics and statistics. And one of the concerns that I have is the lack of information that was shared by Civitas when they originally started this project. The number of phone calls that I received alone asking me to give up my mineral rights to my property without going into detailed information and the implications and the impact that would happen from selling those mineral rights, that short-sightedness that may come with the long-term project. That information was not shared from the beginning. I did talk twice on the phone with someone and repeatedly said, no, thank you. I appreciate the call, but no, thank you. And I think I received a total of 11 phone calls asking for me to sell my mineral rights. I may still have a recording of one of those somewhere. During that time frame, no information was offered around the project and the environmental impacts, as well as air quality impacts. Specifically, I would also like to go back and reference the information that was stated in the Colorado Sun and what happened in Longmont and the 5-year lawsuit that went on with that project and the fight with those community members that I believe some of them were really fighting back related to those mineral rights and the long-term implications. They have now left that area, and it feels like they're targeting our community now. And I would hate to see us in a legal battle as a result of the lack of information shared and the misinformation shared as a result. In addition, I know someone else has already read this information to you, but the EPA study and that Superfund site, it's appalling to me that we would even consider any type of fracking, since the EPA has clearly stated they are concerned with a bedrock layer confining the bottom of the landfill. It is subject to microfractures and could lead to catastrophic release of hazardous substances into the groundwater. We have experts for a reason. We should utilize their information. And just to follow up and to end the evening with a pop culture reference, I feel like we're in a place and a situation like I'm in Erin Brockovich right now, and Civitas is PG&E, and I'm being told that hexavalent chromium is good for me. I really don't want that kind of thing in my groundwater, and 10 years from now, having the same situation in the media that we've seen repeatedly in other communities throughout the United States. It's obvious fracking is detrimental to communities, and that we are going to see an influx of issues with spills, with toxic waste, with water depletion, with resources. And when I have a letter in front of me that states numbers like 6, 24, 32, 27, rather than 4 billion gallons of water being used for fracking, that's incredibly misleading to the public. It's not written as it should be, and the resource provided in here, no electronic link so consumers can access the reports and read the information in real time. I need to call or I need to send an email to request information rather than it being actively provided. This is subversiveness at its best. Thank you for your time and consideration. I appreciate you all staying late and listening to our comments. In case you were confused, I'm not in support of the project.
Thank you. All right, folks, I've got a few more. 4 more names that have recently signed up: Reno Reese, Kay Taylor, Carmen Hanegraaff, and Jared Bynum. Any of those guys in the room? Just a second.
I'm not going to have enough time to finish this comment, so if I stop halfway through, I'm doing my best. Thank you, members of the commission, and to Arapahoe County, who's not here, for hosting us today for this discussion. My name is Jared Bynum. I'm an environmental justice advocate with Colorado Rising, a lifelong Coloradan, and I grew up just down the street from here, spending my summers fishing and swimming in the waters of the reservoir. I caught my first fish at a youth fishing derby at the reservoir when I was 6 years old. I didn't win. And I owe my interest in environmental policy to the love of nature I developed because of the reservoir and the awe I feel when I hear the calls of frogs and birds or the wind sweeping through the amber grasslands surrounding our community. I want to ask you to please consider the fact that some places might just be too special to destroy in this way. Habitat and species richness maps ignore the fact that animals travel, wetlands ebb and flow, and our biological communities shift, grow, and change just as we do. Plans to mitigate impacts are not a full avoidance of those impacts, but rather a supposed acceptable amount of habitat destruction, air and water pollution, and greenhouse gas emissions agreed to by the state on our behalf. These lands, our air, our water, and our families are more valuable than the meager tax revenue to be levied from this development. The concerns expressed today by members of our community are not unfounded or overblown. Numerous studies show the very tangible consequences of proximity to oil and gas development. A 2023 study, Air Pollution and Health Impacts of Oil and Gas Production in the United States, shows that in 2016 alone, there were substantial health impacts proven from air pollution from oil and gas production. Impacts are fairly concentrated in the regions with oil and gas production. However, there's notable spread to areas outside major ONG producing regions, with NO2 being the largest contributor to health impacts, followed closely by ozone and particulate matter. A 2020 study and analysis of the impact of unconventional oil and gas activities on public health in Oklahoma shows that an increase in the number of unconventional wells has a positive impact on mortality rates, so that's more death, that's not actually positive, and incidences of cancer, cardiac and respiratory disease in communities in close spatial proximity, and a negative impact on life expectancy. On average, a 1% increase in the number of fracking wells leads to a 4.2% reduction in life expectancy. A similar trend was observed with the remaining health indicators, where a 1% increase in the number of fracking wells leads to a 6.8% increase in the mortality rate, a 7.9% increase in cancer, a 7.3% increase in cardiac disease, and finally, a 5.9% increase in respiratory diseases. Assessing a 2018 study assessing human health impacts of particulate matter and ozone impacts from oil and natural gas shows that Colorado alone sees over 70 premature deaths annually as a result of just the pollution attributable to particulate matter and ozone emissions from oil and gas. And lastly, a 2021 study, Associations Between Residential Proximity to Oil and Gas Drilling, shows that developing fetuses are especially sensitive to environmental toxicants, including those produced from oil and gas drilling sites. Existing literature reports associations between exposure to air and water pollution and adverse reproductive health outcomes, such as birth term weight and being small for gestational age. Higher traffic-related air pollution levels are associated with increased risk of adverse birth outcomes as well, and the large number of trucks required for oil and gas drilling yields substantial increases in local traffic-related air pollution. These are neighborhoods, these are homes, this is drinking water. Don't allow oil and gas companies to fracture our communities. Don't approve this project.
Thank you.
Hi, sorry, I didn't plan on speaking, so I apologize for my attire. Usually this is not my professional attire. You guys have heard the numbers, you've heard the facts. I'm really gonna implore upon you to look at the human aspect of this. If I can just walk up real quick and share something with you, would that be okay on my phone? It's really quick, I promise.
Sure. What's your name?
My name's Carmen Hannegriff. I live in South Shore.
Thanks.
Sorry, let me preface. What I'm going to share with you is a video of students at our elementary school. I volunteer in our neighborhood, our community, and our elementary school regularly. And I want to share with you one of the many days that our students and our kids, not just mine, but the people here, I know many of the people here, our kids attend the same school. You're going to see a video of our kids spending time outside, less than 1 mile away from the proposed sites.
Let me make a suggestion. Can I come find you after this is over, and then you can email that to me, and I'll get it to all of us so that we can all see it as opposed to on your phone? A lot of kids having a lot of fun. Thanks. I'll come find you, and then you can email that to me, and I'll make sure it gets to all the commissioners.
So again, I didn't plan on speaking. I'm going to speak high level, and again, you've heard the numbers. I'm a mortgage lender. I work at a local credit union. A lot of my past clients were directly affected by the Marshall Fire. I've had numerous phone calls with clients in tears because the insurance is not covering the expense of their fire that was unplanned. Nobody expected it, and people now cannot rebuild. Their livelihoods are gone. I'm a mom, a working mom of 3 young kids. I have 3 young kids. My husband works full-time. I couldn't imagine having that added risk around our house with potential sparks, lighting the grass fires and everything around our neighborhood. The other concern I have is the closeness to our homes that the wells are proposed. Back in the 70s and 80s, the wells that were proposed were even further out than the ones that are currently proposed without homes. So you've heard that Civitas has said that they would be fine moving the wells. I would highly implore that if this project is to move forward, that be a condition, that they be much further away from our homes to reduce that risk and allow more containment boundaries in the event of wildfire and the health hazards to our families. I know you saw earlier the amount of people as well here who are in direct opposition of this. I'm a working mom. I came here because this is important to me. I'm in the middle of trying to pack one of my kids to go on a camping trip, another one to stay, at a friend's house this weekend. I came here just like as a voice for the people who I know can't come here and are in direct opposition of this. This is a very, very small percentage of the people alone in my neighborhood of close to 2,000 homes that are not in favor of this for the many reasons we've talked about. And again, I see you're expecting, you guys have families. We are not just people who live out here. We're your brothers, your sisters, your nieces, your nephews, your grandchildren, your children. Would you want them to be exposed to these? Would you implore a commission in your control of something like this to ask to do something for us? So, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all for staying late. My name is Kat Traylor. I am the organizing director for Working Families Party. And I wasn't going to speak tonight, so thank you for having me. I have to say that I'm a little bit angry that I'm here, folks. I'm angry that the government that I elected, the one that's been appointed, and the one that's been hired, didn't make the decision to squash this topic on site. We have people begging you to make a different decision. Thank you for hearing them out, but these are families, and they have so much at risk, and we've seen what happened to Belo Romero. We also saw what happened in Boulder. The difference in those two communities is money, folks. Boulder had a deeper pocket to fight back. I'm a middle-class family. I don't have the money to fight back. All I have is my mouthpiece, and I hope you're listening. I hope you're listening to the folks that are begging, which is sad, that they're begging you to do better. I'm not pointing the fingers at you per se, but the system is flawed. It's not your fault. We're all doing the best we can. I'm simply asking you and begging, like the rest of these families have been tonight, to do the right thing and be on the right side of history so that we don't repeat Belo Romero, which was a disgrace for Colorado. With that, I'll take my seat.
Thank you. All right. Just a sec. Is there anybody else that I've not called upon? Come on up. We've exhausted those who've signed up, but we'll hear from one more. Thanks for sticking around with us.
All right, good night, everyone. So I did not plan to speak tonight, and I came here with Rachel, my neighbor, and she's an advocate for Save the Aurora Reservoir, and she's been coming out to all the neighbors, and I would have to say that somewhat I was like, I'm concerned, but not like concerned, but after coming tonight, I'm definitely concerned, and I just have 3 questions that I would like to ask the panel, and you can just raise your hand, no, yes or no, just raise your hand. Do you live in Arapahoe County?
I'm sorry, the format is for us to listen?
Oh, for you listen? Okay,
Yeah,
all right,
so-
then you don't. Well, I'll just have you guys ponder on this question.
Yeah.
Do you live in the county? If you do live in the county, would you be in the audience today? If you wasn't working for the ECMC board, would you be in the audience today? And if your answer to those questions are yes, then I would bet that you're going to make the right decision as it pertains to this project.
Great.
All right.
You got your point across. I'm sorry, can you identify yourself for the record?
Oh, sorry. My name is Tavita Skinjanik, and I'm a resident of South Shore.
Great. Thanks
All
for
right,
sticking
thank
around
you.
with us. Appreciate it. All right. I'm going to come find you right after we're done. Oh, okay. Great. All right. Well, listen, we really appreciate the folks that are here, that were here. This has been very informational for us. This is the process that we're going through, and we appreciate your community and the Save the Aurora for asking for this Rule 511 hearing. I think it's been highly successful. We've taken a lot of notes. We will have this on our website. All of this will become part and parcel of the process. The hearing, as I mentioned, is set for sometime late in June. I would encourage all of you to remain engaged. There are other opportunities for you to provide written comment to us. I appreciate the written comment that I got right here. We do a lot of reading, and so if you have more particular comments that you would like us to understand, we read everything that comes into the folder and into the file. So with that, again, we want to thank everybody. I want to thank our staff for the good work here, thank the Arapahoe County, and we thank all of you for being here, and we look forward to seeing you again.